What's good, guys? Today we're gonna have a quick look at how I made my brand new song Run. Let's start with the second drop.
Tell me what go on, yo. Big 4-5 in the palm, run. Tell me what.
Let's get the percussion out of the way first. So most of the drums are actually samples and loops from my Basshouse sample pack, which you can find on the FL Cloud store. It's integrated in the DAW now, or you can buy it via producerloops.com. Both platforms, same pack. So these drums. Nothing too crazy, just some classic Basshouse beat with some additional perks on top. Now on the synth side, that's where it gets real interesting. Let's break down the most characteristic sound of the track first, which has I believe 3 layers to it. So this one is consisting from this high layer, which has a little bit of pitch monster on it for like a chorus effect, essentially pitch diffusion, some EQ. Supermassive is basically just adding a little bit of reverb, and then multiband compression, and then the main layer, which is this one here. Sorry, I missed this one. That is Harmor. So Harmor is FL Studio's serum, essentially. Has lots of sound design capabilities. Very diverse plugin. This one here. You'll recognize most of my sound design as electric. I am using the phaser in here, very powerful. I'm essentially using that to cut holes in the frequency spectrum. Without that, it sounds like this. Very cool, but not as like guttural and growly. So somewhere in between, I like the character. Now you gotta draw these curves in with the envelope, and then a little bit of pitch vibrato for additional character. A bunch of unison as well that's being automated. So that's the main layer, and then we have a tonal layer higher up, which is the sine bass over here. That one is a pretty straightforward sine wave that I am then throwing a ton of distortion and noise on. Noise first, then distortion in that order, because if not, you don't get the same results. So let me pull that one up for a second. We got number 40 here. We got a really straightforward sine bass here. I'm going to turn off the post-processing and show you guys exactly what this is. Just a low-passed sine wave with some overtones that's then being pushed into Shaperbox. Shaperbox is doing most of the texture here. If I leave the processing but remove Shaperbox, you'll still get this. A little bit of saturation, but none of the texture up top. So I'm using the white noise here, then I'm driving that one, that's saturation, a little bit of bit crushing, and then a volume shaper to just not make it sound too long. That's doing the, let me turn it on. That's adding the radliness to it actually. Without that, I like the little, the rolliness. So after that, it's being pushed into a side widener, which is adding stereo width to it, destructor for even more distortion, even more overtones. I love it when a sound is absolutely smashed to shit, but then placed nicely in the mix. Then we got a multiband compressor for even more control, an additional shaper box to get rid of the tail before the transient comes in of the kick and the clap. We have a supercharger for more compression and coloration, and then finally an EQ to really tuck it into the mix so it doesn't get in the way of anything else. Let's have a look at the running bass, which is the other main characteristic sound in the song. This one here. Let's get rid of that overtone layer. Oh no, wait, that's in there, huh? So this one, I gotta remove some of the layers, but not all of them, because if I turn off the automation, it doesn't sound the same. So I got this going on here. This one is rather interesting. Again, a Harmor bass, no surprise there. We got this boy over here. Again, actually this one is not using any phaser. So it's a little more flat sounding, not as gritty. It's basically just a saw wave with a bunch of distortion on it with unison. And then I am doing a specific technique here. It's called harmonic unison pitch, which changes the amount of unison, or the unison pitch offset will change based off of where we are in the frequency spectrum, gives it that weird wet sound. It's like sort of hard to place. Now that is then being ran into a soothe, a compressor. Sorry, the soothe is not on, just a compressor. Pro Q3 for compression, tone shaping, a little bit of reverb occasionally, not in this specific moment. And then most importantly, this bass shaper, which is actually adding a lot of the control here to the sound so that it doesn't become too long. I'm also adding a filter there to remove a little bit of the tail on the highs. Very important part of this sound. If I remove that, we got this, which is a much longer, more open sound. I actually automate this plugin in and out to add accents to the tail. And then finally, all of that is being sidechained and layered together in a bus, as well as with the drums, that's the case. All the percussion goes into this guy, and all the kicks and claps go into this guy, which is giving more control over the tone and the loudness of each of those groups. Let's listen to everything again in context. I forgot to look at this layer, which is the harmony high end. Which is also another very texture-rich layer that goes on top of everything else, just as a melodic accent. Actually had quite some fun making this one. This one is frequency shifted. Without that, it sounds like this. So with the frequency shifter, has this like ringiness to it. Actually, it's ring mod. Not technically frequency shifting, but it's being rattled by the frequency shifter. And then that's being pushed again into a pitch monster, and then into shaper box, which gives it the shape, the volume control. And then of course, I have a separate bass line, because if you really want to control your low end, I highly recommend having a bass that does it by itself. So it's easier to mix into the final master, which is a fundamental and an overtone, just so that I have full control over the low end. Nothing else has low end information other than the kick drum. So if I take off that bass line, you just got the tail of the kick, and that's it. So absolutely nailing the sidechain on the bass is super important. So I really went in and made sure that the tail of the kick and the sub aren't phasing. If you look at this here, you can see how they're perfectly connecting. No phasiness, no bullshit. Works like a charm. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'd gladly help you understand better how this is created and how you can apply these techniques for yourself. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely day.